Okay, so this is the part where we turn the tables a little bit, and you get to pose questions to our speakers and panelists today before we get started. So have those questions. We'll have a microphone and an ARC person to bring the microphone around. So while you're thinking about your first question, I'll let our new company representatives and panelists here introduce themselves. We can start here with you, John.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here today as well. My name is John Dyke, the Chief Executive Officer of SESME, the Smart Manufacturing Institute. It's the United States federal government's attempt to accelerate the democratization of smart manufacturing. In other words, what are the practical things that we can fund to drive the adoption of smart manufacturing, as Jeff pointed out, not just for the Fortune 1000, which is where most of our innovation has been focused, but for the small and medium manufacturers as well. But I think it's the market makers and the sort of big brands and the big organizations in this space that with the right guidance and the right capabilities and thoughtfulness can actually innovate in ways that will drive the cost and complexity of these implementations to the point where they become much more accessible for all manufacturers, which is really, really, truly important for our manufacturing competitiveness here in the U.S. If we're going to regionalize our supply chains, if we're going to do any of the reshoring, given the state of the U.S. workforce right now, I think it's absolutely vital that we invest in accelerating the democratization and deployment of smart manufacturing. We cannot, we are falling behind both Europe and Asia in terms of the rate of adoption of these vital capabilities. And that doesn't bode well for our competitiveness long term, but I think we do have the opportunity to collaborate and work together much more effectively than we have in the past, and sort of leave our proprietary and sort of customized and stovepiped data silo vendor lock-in strategies behind as we work together in this direction. So from my perspective, I love the innovation that I saw here, driving with these four speakers, these four great manufacturing companies, driving interoperability and enabling the kind of innovation at scale in a much more structured way is what we're trying to advocate for and working together with these great companies to bring to the marketplace.
Thank you, John.
Hi, Jason Jackson. I'm Vice President and Distinguished Engineer at Kyndryl. If you're not familiar with Kyndryl, Kyndryl is new, I think we're 1 year old. Global Technical Services from IBM, part of the spin. Have a lot of freedom of action now, being able to work with multiple hyperscalers and being able to bring technology innovations forward. Partnership with Nokia, Nokia Innovations has been key. We feel like the convergence of the cellular networks and the connectivity alongside with the compute, its location at the edge, and the ability to process 80% of data at the edge rather than carry it across a backhaul is a strategic advantage to really making Industry 4.0 successful. I'm looking forward to the questions today. I'm fascinated with the conversations from Lockheed Martin. I'm always about how do we implement brownfield implementations, and that was a really good lesson. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Walker.
Hey, Walker Armstead with SAS. I run our high-tech and aerospace business in the company. Yes, Mike is my customer, full disclosure, and no, I did not make his charts.
Okay. So, all right. So we've had a variety of different takes on digital transformation, as you can see, and they're all valid and they're all important. So let's see if we have any questions from the audience, and just raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you. And we've got one right up here, EJ.
Hi, thanks for the panel. Right to the question, this might be more for Mike and Jeff. Given the workforce challenges we see Is labor saving ROI as important as hard ROI for you and your justifications?
Sure. For us, most of the business cases rely on pure efficiency of labor, but in the sense of it's a cost avoidance, not a savings. So when we look at that, we're looking to redeploy and reskill people. We hire thousands of people a year. There's a big churn as well in that, so upskilling becomes really important. But keeping that labor force productive and constantly upskilling them to continue their growth is really important to us. And then the other real ROI driver is more product coming out the door with less input. So the more we can increase the yield with the existing footprint of the raw materials, the better off we are as a business.
I think it's something similar for us. I mean, we many of these are justified on quality first, right? I think we saw some of the research say that our quality still is the most important job, and having more confidence and more evidence and having our people be more effective in quality assurance. And then really to pure roles, right? We have a very interesting profile of P&G employees and contracted employees against many of these workflows. So the profile may change, would be more a profile of P&G people versus contractors. Many of this can be manual steps, manual activity. So I think there's upskilling, there's a different profiling of the people doing those roles between P&G employees and contractors. So I don't think it's a pure displacement, it's a profile change, it's an upskilling. And ultimately it's measured, as Mike said, in throughput and overall productivity of how much we produce. So we see a lot of skill transformations, a lot of role adjustments being made. And that's not so easy to do, but that's what we're trying to do, okay?
Okay, we have another question here.
Fantastic presentations. Thank you all very much for those. I think you all represent the best of the best. I'd like to know if you were at the mean before, and probably most people are at the average or mean, what was the number one thing that moved you to the best of the best? Want to go?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit, but I do think for us, I mean, getting the alignment, tying it to something that meant something. So again, whether it's reliability, quality, having those value cases really well defined, but being able to demonstrate how you could achieve those and have that visible to truly senior leadership that was willing to open up the pocketbooks to commit resources, funding, time, really made a huge difference. I mean, we had several sessions with our CEO, right, where we brought him in, talking innovation, having the team talk through some of those ideas, and really tying that back to the business leaders. To me, that was the biggest change for us, is being able to make it feel, real and see the value that could be delivered from that. Other thoughts?
For us, the journey started a long time ago, right? So back in 2016, and it was a call to action from our president of manufacturing back then. Being good with quality, it's not good enough for the future. We need to do something different. And he had asked all of his functions to come up with transformation ideas. Only two of them are still alive. One's digital transformation. The other is our production system concept that we basically stole from P&G and Toyota, meaning the process concept, right? So those two things, and then we merged those together, and that really helped propel us through the pandemic, is having that system in place with the processes and people working, digitized, is what really helped leapfrog us up. And we're building on that momentum now to get more and more of the capabilities embedded in place. Because once you prove the value, the demand doesn't stop. So we used to have a demand issue of, like, we had solutions, but people didn't really want them. Now they need them in order to be successful on a daily basis, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we just can't keep up. That's our biggest challenge, is how do we go faster?
I think the observation at P&G is, I think, again, around the same time frame, 2015, the whole industry 4.0 digital transformation, senior leaders knew they had to do something, but they didn't know exactly what. So we were making maybe pre-investments in capabilities and skills and people. But COVID clearly, and some other changes, external forces have made it imperative, right? So COVID taught us many, many things about having to have remote and mobile work. The demand for certain products at P&G were so well beyond, and the same has happened for pharmaceuticals and others. There are just so many external forces, even sustainability and what we need to be doing to be making sustainable products, whether it be the materials that go in them or the energy. So the external forces kind of came on top of an instinct to invest in digitals. Now it's an imperative. And so there's no longer pushing coming from the digital natives. They're pulling on us, and we can barely do enough to accommodate the needs that we have in all those major external force areas. So I think, simple story is that we kind of had an inclination. We were investing marginally to now we're investing wherever we can afford to make sure we can accommodate all those external forces that we cannot ignore and still be a world-class company.
Yeah, so I will say for Lockheed, so I started my journey in 2014 with Lockheed, really pushing it. And I will say, I believe that for some time, the aerospace industry, and especially the defense industry, has been behind on the whole digital transformation because our design periods are so long and our production periods are so long. So, I worked on the F-35 proposal in 1998. Yeah, so it's been out there a while. So the digital transformation came after the original design and the original production opened. But I have a list in my office of the 26 VPs and senior directors I briefed on why we needed to do this before we actually started doing it. So it was really about what's the value to the customer? Why do we need to do this for our customer? And it was a challenge, but we fought through it.
So how did you know that 26 was enough?
Because the 26 said you're good to go.
I think one of the reason these folks are on the stage and considered the leaders relative to those that are not on the stage and in that mean is there's a theme in these 4 presentations, and there's a focus on the actual end user, the actual people that are rolling up their sleeves and getting impacted by, change of process, change of technology that digital transformation brings. I'm going to borrow a quote, but from a colleague, but the cliche is the culture will eat strategy for lunch, and so when I see digital transformation efforts fail, typically, actually, it's because there was not consideration for how that end user is going to be impacted.
I think the key is intelligent risk. I think the thought leaders that are up here on this stage took an intelligent risk. They saw some pattern in the data, they saw an opportunity, and it's not always the most comfortable to be in a situation where you're committing to, I'm going to roll out a plant in 12 months, and I'm going to save a ton of money doing it, and that's going to fund our other digital ambitions. I think the folks on this stage take those risks, and they reap the benefits of taking those risks. I think there's a message there for all of us.
I would just add briefly that in my 30 years sort of in this space, and particularly in the last 10, the delta between, or the difference between those that are sort of in the mean and those that are at the far end of the maturity bell curve is those that have kind of worked out the magic between the grassroots efforts in the plants and how to be thoughtful about adoption, as Jeff mentioned, kind of the pull from the operators, from the plants, from those that are on the front lines, combined with leadership that recognizes and has a sense of urgency around whether to invest in this space or not. Are we going to drive to be competitive here in our U.S. manufacturing operations or not? So it's that sort of top-down and bottoms-up approach and the magic that happens when you have the privilege of bringing both of those, or working at the nexus of seeing both of those initiatives, or those push and the pull sort of come together.
Okay, good. So I have a question in the back here.
Thank you for the thoughtful presentations. I really appreciate that a lot of the answers that you're talking about here put people in the center, right? Because that's the most important asset. So I'm sure you guys aren't sitting still, right? You're going to do the next wave of transformation and value add. So in enabling your people to have those insights and take actions and be more productive, do you see the availability and ease of use of data key to that? Do you see the application and understanding of algorithms key to that? Or is there something else? Like, what do you see as the next wave in terms of data and algorithms and all of that coming together?
Maybe I'll talk. This is a topic that's come up for about 10 years for me, and it came from the Air Force. So I feel like our operators deserve the right to be treated like pilots, right? Not people who have the toughest job in the company, right? And so we're very excited about the hundreds and thousands of machine learning models that we're building against multiple different workflows of quality, maintenance, safety. However, they're still disparaging workflows. And so what we're working on now actively is how do we converge them into a user experience, and I have a visionary state like Waze. Think about Waze when you drive your vehicle, particularly for me when I have to try to find my way in Europe, right? I go anywhere in Europe now. 20 years ago, I would only go to the hotel and the plant and go home because I didn't know where I was going. But how do you create that kind of confidence in manufacturing to produce a production order? And all of those intelligence building blocks are all converged to that individual. So they feel the same confidence you feel when you're driving with those sort of applications. So I think my answer to this question is we're still not. In fact, I was saying to somebody, there's all kinds of brilliant smart boxes out there on the floor, right? Everyone's got the same concept. What we don't have is a way to bring all that intelligence to the operator as if they were the pilot. And then once we've earned the pilot, we can take it to UAVs and autonomous production. So I don't think the intelligence algorithms are mobilized yet in the way that they need to be. So I think that's the next frontier for all of, at least for what I'm going to be driving.
Yeah, I would say for me, the urgency for me is young men and women that have a desire to learn and really push the edges of what that data can be used for, that understand the data and understand the mathematics behind it. I've been working with several universities to try to develop a different kind of data scientist. So much of what comes out of these data science degrees now is very much, looking at Google data, who uses their iPhone this amount of time and where are they traveling. So I will tell you, for me, my last 3 hires in data science have been physicists because they understand the physics of the airplane, they understand the data, but they also know the math backwards and forwards. And so, I think when we really look at the things that we need to do with data, there's got to be a bit of a shift in what we're teaching our data scientists as they come up.
I think success breeds success a little bit, right? So if you think about, a lot of the digital transformation, hey, we did network, we did the data aggregation, we delivered some applications. It just creates a bigger appetite, right? Because the users start to see that and they say, well, this is good, but why can't I do this, right? And you see it in the consumer. I mean, we're so used to, picking up your phone and, there's nothing you can't do anymore, right? Whether order a pizza, what's the weather, that type of thing. I think our users they're going to be demanding that they have that same type of access to operations data, to, production, data, whatever else. And I think you're right. The skill sets, the incoming employees are going to absolutely expect to have that same type of access. So I do think it is, you can't sit still, right? Certainly we've laid a foundation. Again, I was fascinated to hear the stories across this today. Very similar, right? Really getting that foundation laid. What can we get? How do we start? But then, inevitably, it's just going to lead to what's that next question that needs answered.
So if I could just build on all of that, because it was all really good. One of the things that we've tried to do is we do everything with that user at the center. I have a user experience design team that leads a lot of our efforts. So think of like a neutral third party that doesn't have extreme domain expertise, but they have a skill set to elicit things from people to share how they feel when they're doing a process. They can translate those feelings into a design state where they can work with the people that understand math and translate it into an interface that is easily understandable, gives you that one-click thing. So that's been a bit of our secret sauces. A couple years ago, I made a hire, somebody, with like in our environment, tattoos all over. Like that was not something that was commonly a thing at Pfizer back then, right? Like so, like I was like, we're going on a limb. This person is really a brilliant person, and she's really helped us transform just our own team, how we think about stuff, how we solve problems, and how we interact with our partners on the floor and everywhere else. We study how they work and then translate that into some kind of interaction that makes sense for them, not for us. So that's been a huge, huge change for us, and I think we'll continue the momentum.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So I have one more question, and I'm just going to I'll pick a couple of panelists, and I'll start with you, John. So what changes do you see coming from manufacturing industry, and how can digital transformation help?
Thanks, Greg. From my standpoint, one of the things I think it's really important to do is to sort of look at the world that we've created over the last 3 or 4 decades of the third industrial revolution as we look forward to the transformation, the disruption, the value creation that is held out for us as the fourth industrial revolution. And I think it's truly important to recognize, without any rose-colored glasses, that the last 10 years of Industry 4.0 has been really about creating awareness, about trying and about understanding where we might go. But I think for the most part, and this sounds a little crass, I think those of us in the vendor ecosystem, and I'll put myself at the top of that list, have been putting lipstick on the Industry 3.0 pig and calling it Industry 4.0. And I say that with deep affection because that's where the industry is, but with the recognition that looking forward, we have to be focused on interoperability and the idea of enabling innovation at scale. I think we've been hugely innovative in solving virtually every problem that we face over the last 40 years in this space. That said, innovation is not our challenge. Being innovative and enabling the sorts of use cases we see here at scale times 10 is where we need to go. Satya Nadella said in the middle of the pandemic that there will be 500 million apps created over the next couple of years, over the next 5 years. That should probably scared most of us hearing that, and it should. But the real question is, how can we enable that kind of innovation? The technical debt, the mess that we've created over the last 40 years that exists in all of your plants today, that's the result of use case innovation, unbridled innovation, where every use case is its own data silo, its own stovepipe, represents its own sort of vendor lock-in. If we would think about unleashing innovation at scale, it's got to be through the idea of interoperability. And so the magic, the devil's in the details there, but innovation, structured innovation at scale through interoperability is the key, and would love to talk with anyone about what that really means.
Thanks, John. Walker, would you like to weigh in on that?
So first of all, that was a good answer. Can you repeat the question?
What changes are coming in the manufacturing industry, and how will digital transformation help?
So, where I sit, again, we're primarily focused on the analytics side of that equation. But digital transformation, fundamentally, I asked ChatGPT just to make sure I had the definition right, but it's primarily focused on business process automation and then the data and the analytics. At SaaS, the emerging trends are, we've heard it here today and in other talks, quality, asset performance, which is the health of your assets on the manufacturing floor, and probably something that hasn't been talked about, but is a significant emerging trend for us is in the area of warranty and using analytics to actually free up cash that's currently held for warranty purposes. And all of that is basically, from the manufacturing out to the field, and then, creating that closed loop process, kind of like Mike's doing with data, to enable, again, just significant business efficiency. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And Jason?
Thank you for the question. I think the two key, I'll call it the imminent future, is really around convergence and adjacency. Adjacency being that as we have all pieced together different areas of excellence, what we have the opportunity to do is actually go N+1, N-1 across components that have natural affinity toward each other. If you have a network at the edge, you have a compute platform. If you have a compute platform and you can put in a DevSecOps pipeline that standardizes your model management and solutioning, you can start to get to a much more compact cost structure that can really drive extreme value. And then when talking about convergence, I'm not talking about the weasel words that we put into the marketplace. I'm talking about specifically what are some key actual steps that can actually take advantage of these intelligent risks that people have taken and take that to the next level. Because the challenge that I think all of us as industry folks face is we get credibility off of one opportunity where we've drove something to the ground, but we now have to go after our next opportunity. And we're being expected as thought leaders to deliver that. So I think the key thing is maintain your credibility, find that adjacency, and focus on the convergence at the right areas.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm afraid we're out of time, but thanks everyone for attending. And please give our crew here a round of applause. A great job. Thanks, everybody.